Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 5 of What If Naruto Was in My Hero Academia Fell in Love with Momo and Kyoka. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Izuku managed a quick sucker punch to the back of Muscular's head, stunning him with a burst of electricity that he managed to get to Kota in time. I am sorry about hitting you before, but where is Naruto? Kota asked loudly. He was not so secretly hoping the blonde boy would come and be the hero his aunt talked about in the past that would save him. Yeah, I figured you were expecting him. Izuku nervously chuckled. But he is in the middle of the forest with the rest our classes. I sensed you were up here and had to help. Then get us out of here. Kota screamed in panic as he saw Muscular recover and grin dangerously at the two. That's the man that killed my parents, the water hose duo. Well, this is some irony. I remember them. Muscular cheered as he pointed at his face, showing off his glass eye. Sure, they gave me a souvenir as a parting gift, but I did not think I'd be able to make a smear out of their son so soon. Ha! Stay back. Nah, I do not think I will, and do not get it twisted that I am here for revenge or some crap like that. I just love blood and violence. Muscular roared as he rushed the short distance between them, only to be blinded at the last second from Izuku's lightning as the boy ran with Kota, their bodies mere streaks of light as he ran away. However, Muscular got lucky and grabbed Izuku's leg and ignored the tingling sensation that the lightning attacked his arm brought on. Grinning at his catch, he slammed them into the mountainside. The flurry of motion, Izuku made sure his back was the mountain and away from Kota. The pain and sudden jolt caused his quirk activation and he teleported to the edge of the cliff. Well shit, I got the lightning teleporter from the sports festival. Muscular laughed. Oh, that reminds me, you fought that Naruto kid. Any clue where that brat is, or did I knock it out of you? Naruto. Why? Kota screamed. Haven't you taken enough? Nope. Muscular roared in laughter. I love to fight and turn people in bloody smears on the road, but I can't kill him. The top brass on the league wants him for some reason. The rest of you, or the buffet of blood. Izuku glared at the man for even thinking of taking his best friend away, much less taking away Kota's hero. I won't let you. You don't have a choice, pipsqueak. Muscular laughed as he was suddenly in their face, ready to grind them in the ground with his fist. Thankfully, Izuku teleported Kota and him further up the mountain. Kota, stay on my back for a while. My quirk won't hurt you, but it will do damage if you are not clinging to me. Izuku said, and since Kota did end up watching the sports festival, well, parts of it, he nodded and held on tightly as the static erupted around them. A few seconds later, multiple bolts of lighting hit them. Kota wondered at the tingling feeling but knew it could be much worse. What? Are you just trying to make me deaf up there? Get down here and fight me, you cowards. Muscular roared in fury as he built up his muscle fibers to be able to jump and reach them. Hey, your death is near anyway, might as well spear you. By the time Izuku was done with all the thunder and lightning strikes, him and Kota were covered in verdant green electricity, the signature call sign of his new Raiju form, if still incomplete. The moment Muscular saw this, he grinned with insane glee before jumping up to meet them. He speared his fist through the electrical form, but it just flashed away and above him even more before a lightning-covered fist sent him back down to earth in a rather violent manner. Muscular laid down in a him-sized crater, grinning like an idiot. He was having so much fun. It was all he ever wanted. Sure, blood had come with fights before and he accepted it. He just wanted to fight for his life. This is not going to go the way you want it. Izuku called out, and while he knew this next action was uncalled for, he could not justify Muscular being in this world any longer. He was a monster that would continue to create orphans in this world, all for the fun of it. Izuku reached for the sky, a single lightning bolt lit up the sky, showing off the massive cloud formation above the mountain, and stunning Muscular so he could not get away. Thunder God's fury. Hundreds of lightning bolts converged onto Izuku and acting like a focus, formed into one that then annihilated the mountaintop and Muscular with it. XXX. That one massive lightning bolt also acted as Izuku's teleportation. However, he knew he could not reappear in camp or else destroy it with an equally massive lightning bolt. Instead, he opted for going further in the forest and hoped for the best. As he and Kota recovered and let the electricity disperse, they came upon a bloody body and not far away from them, Naruto facing off, a pirate. The League of Villains also had a real-life pirate with them. Seriously. But then said pirate became to scream and hold his head like his life depend on it, and that seemed to utterly baffle Naruto for a moment. Izuku was able to go and see if he could help at all, but Naruto had thrown a kunai at their feet with a single tag on it that said, "Let this happen, I have a plan. P.S. Get Ragdoll to safety." In the next moment, Naruto glowed blue before being shaped into a small blue marble. Naturally, Kota started to freak out that Naruto was captured, but Izuku kept him quiet as the pirate Naruto had been talking to was soon accompanied by a magician before they were teleported away by the mist villain. Yes, the heroes lost that day, but the war was far from over. XXX. The next thing Naruto knew, he was freed from the tiny marble prison and strapped to a chair in a bar with cork cuffs on that dampened his ability to use one for all. Normally, one would be worried at this point, what with being kidnapped and bound in place with villains on all sides. Naruto, however, was just smiling as he played along. "What are you smiling about?" Dabi asked, weirded out. "You are powerless and at our mercy, while the press are turning against heroes." "You would think so, but those vultures are rather fickle, when you think about it. I am sure the one in the other TV knows that more than anyone. Do-gooders raise up and shine for all to see, then they mess up and people start to question them. It is all rather boring and cyclical if you ask me." He does have a point. I have seen it many times. The public is always so easily swayed by those vultures. All for one chuckled with amusement. "Shut up, we did not bring you here to talk. Yay, socialization," Twice spoke in his odd double speech. For his part, Naruto just smiled more as he verbally antagonized Dabi and played with Twice. While this went on, Tamura eyed Naruto for a moment before quietly speaking to Sasuke. "Are you feeling better?" "I am." Sasuke said. He drank his Sprite and rubbed his forehead. He really wanted to get up and deck Naruto, before giving him an uncharacteristic hug, but that would raise questions he had no intentions of answering. It was still weird for him, remembering 2 lives lived. He remembered his death by Sakura. He remembered being crippled near the end. It was a weird feeling. Not to mention his quirk in this world. Susanoo's blessing. A quirk that connected to his Sharingan back in the ninja world. Even his sharp shooting skill was connected to his old eyes. He did not know how to explain it, but all he really knew was that he was weaker here. He used to be a force of destruction. Meh, that was fine, he could work with that and help Tamura with his anti-villain mission. He had worked with less before and still came out on top. "Kurogiri, send the boy to me. I wish to have a chat with him." Sasuke watched as Naruto was warped away in a purple mist, and some part of him longed for a power like that again, but he also knew that these quirks had limits. They were like the prototype versions of bloodline limits. Plus, having seen the Nomu, he knew there would be biological issues. "Be ready," he spoke again, catching Tamura's attention. "Naruto will piss him off and accelerate things. Our mission will start soon." "Hey," with the way he was antagonizing Dabi, "I can see it." Tamura chuckled, having seen Dabi leave soon after Naruto did to blow off steam since he could not kill the blonde hero in training. "Too bad, I had just gotten some sweet gear in the League of Legends RPG that I knew would have taken me to the end." Sasuke took another swig of his Sprite before shrugging. "Who says you can't? I want to watch you and Spinner play, while we wait." Tamura grinned excited before he grabbed Spinner and rushed off. Too easy. Looking around the bar calculatingly, he observed the others. Spinner was easy, the Stain fanatic would follow his gamer buddy when shit hit the fan. Dabi was another easy one. He had not killed many in his villain days. Only a few would be rapists, the act reminding him too much of his mother's old situation that he snapped, and Sasuke had seen it firsthand. The boy just wanted his father's attention and to take him down. After that, Dabi did not have a plan. Sasuke was sure he would fall in line. Kurogiri was obviously a Nomu to him, but still retained his mind. He seemed obedient to Tamura and therefore useful. As for Twice, the dual-minded nut job could go either way. He was more of a problem to himself than anyone in the league. Mr. Compress was another person who they could rely on for stealth operations. Then there was Magna, the gender dysmorphia man on a hair trigger. Sasuke was not sure how long she would stay, but they were a tight group, especially since the oppressive auras of Muscular and Moonfish were no longer a factor. This league of villains could be so much more once free. A league of legends in their underworld perhaps. Only time would tell. XXX. What do you mean none of us should go save Naruto? Kirishima roared at his classmates in disbelief. They were currently in the courtyard or general outside rest area of the hospital. The students that were affected by the sleeping gas were taken too. The only reason Momo was still in the hospital was because she got sucker punched by a Nomu and received a concussion. Toru and Setsuna had mostly succeeded in warning other groups about the villain attack. But they were not perfect in that endeavor and some people still got hurt or gassed. I figured your group would be the most rearing to go to save him. Izuku sighed as he sat in between a somewhat calm Momo and Kyoka. Trust me, I wanted to save him as soon as I saw him. It is because, we are so close to Naruto, that we know he will be okay. As much as I rag on the guy's energy and bullshit quirk, Hitoshi groaned before a serious look crossed his face. I have faith in him, if he was willing to let them capture him. I don't know. Let them capture him seems like self-sacrifice, and says come and rescue me. Mina replied, unsure of everything. Inasa frowned before a thought crossed his mind. Naruto has shown that he can manage a tough situation and always seems like he is hiding his true power. Does he have a plan? Yes. Himiko replied for the Naruto squad with such conviction that it made the entire class blink. They were so used to her being bubbly and carefree that this side of her was new to them. We have only seen fractions of his power and honestly, we only saw a glimpse of it during the island incident. I have faith in my brother to pull of the impossible. Sure, our dad is going to get him back, but I have faith that my brother will put a stop to the people that have been attacking us. He has a plan. Kirishima did not like this, but he and a few others that were willing to go and save Naruto backed down. Now it was just a wait-to-see approach. XXX. As Naruto emerged out of the dark mist, still bound to a chair, he saw that he was in a dimly lit warehouse with glowing vats of beings inside. Mostly likely more Nomu. He was pretty sure he was not meant to see them, but he could. What he was meant to see though was a well-dressed, white-haired man in a black three-piece suit sitting in a throne just before all the vats. The eerie green glow of the vats meant to paint the man in an ominous light. Naruto did not really have a plan here. He was winging like he usually did. You know, I half expected either a battle-hardened warrior with tons of scars and armor, or a very old and crippled man in a wheelchair, with how All Might used to go on about how evil you were. Naruto finally said after a much too long silence. Instead, it is just the stereotype businessman in the shadows. Honestly, I should have expected that with some of your dealers in the villain factory. Ah, the child who took down my specially crafted agent, Overclock. I expected another muscle-brained buffoon like All Might, not a wise-cracking warrior from another world. All for One replied coolly. Though the warrior from another world makes sense now, your entrance in our world gave me enough time to escape a losing battle. I mean, the old man is not perfect, but his story does line up with yours. Naruto replied with a shrug. Tell me, would you have ended up a Nomu like your other lackeys? At this, the cool look of composure broke and look of concern overtook All for One's face. If I had somehow sustained a fatal wound and died from the fight, I have a feeling either Kyudai or Orochimaru would have turned me into a high-end Nomu so that I may complete me goals. Most likely Kyudai since he seems more obsessed with helping me. A look of annoyance crossed Naruto's face. Does Orochimaru remember he is from my world at all? All for One blinked rapidly at that in confusion. No. What you suggest is impossible. That man was born here, though that does give me thought of reincarnation now. You passed through the portal in the sky while others like Orochimaru must be transmigrants somehow. Fascinating, I will have to look more into that. All for One then rose from his ominous throne and strode over to the bound blonde. But that will have to be for another time. Out of all the holders of One for All, not one has held my attention with a simple conversation, until you that is. Glad to hear I am different, Naruto replied glibly, I do prefer talking things out. My friends like to joke and call it, my talk no jutsu. I am sure it might have worked on weaker-minded fools, but I know what I am. I am the Demon King, the first always aspired to be. I ruled society for a time before I got bored and let the governments think they took back control. I might come out of hiding soon to remind the world of who I am, but first I must fulfill my main mission. Taking my brother back, All for One said, standing above Naruto in his sitting position. Wasn't that the brother you imprisoned for not following you like a sick puppy and then killed in cold blood for escaping? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. You should not know that. All for One stated, completely off guard. Quirk has evolved. Naruto replied simply before a disgusted look crossed his face. You regretted that action so much, that you have a pathological need for his vestige inside of One for All. Hell, you even molded Tamura after him. What kind of sick yandere bro-con are you? I loved my brother and wanted to share the world with him. All for One screamed in rage before shoving his hand into Naruto's face. Give him back now. XXX. All for One found himself ankle-deep in water in a dark place. What kind of water, he did not know or care at the moment. His attention was on the 9 torii gates and 9 thrones before them, surrounding him in a circle. In the thrones were the 9 holders of One for All, silently observing him with bored looks. Well, he could not tell what All Might's expression was because the man was bathed in flaming golden light. Behind the gates was 9 multitailed gigantic beast of different species, grinning menacing at him. Isn't that cutest thing ever? A 200-year-old human thinks he is some all-powerful demon lord. Kurama rumbled out, shaking the room all around them. My brother, Shukaku, is so much better at it without trying, and his is immature little shit. Yeah, Shukaku roared out and bounced in place before stopping. Hey wait. What is this mockery? All for One asked in an annoyance. Quirked animals. Animals of all things has my brother before me. No, little kitten. Matabi purred in amusement with a Cheshire-like grin on her face. We came with Naruto. And we are not going with you. Yuki intoned with finality. All for One just grinned. Like it or not, I will have my brother and therefore you all. I am sure I could do something with your power. I am afraid that won't happen, brother. Yoichi replied with a look of apathy that infuriated All for One. You do not have the willpower to take this quirk back. It is not about your hatred for the world that will let you take it, but the will of the users. You have hunted down and killed most of us. This ends now. All for One just stared at his younger brother in disbelief. That brat still rejected his ways, even after all this time. It only ends when I get what I want. He replied dangerously before flaring his power, the room shaking as it had done with Kurama, but this time, screams from his own vestiges rang through the air. Ghosts of faceless people surround him in a violent vortex. Then, everything froze in mid-air and All for One could not move. His head was forced to look up as 2 glowing symbols shined brightly overhead before surrounding him. The symbols of the sun and moon leered ominously at All for One that it made him shake as bit as he had no clue what was going on. The sun and moon each touched one of the ghostly faces and absorbed them. Before All for One could roar out in indignant and ironic fury that 2 of his quirks were destroyed or taken somehow. Then golden chains made of energy wrapped around him that caused immense pain that just would not stop. Once he was fully surrounded, he was forced of this world. XXX. All for One stumbled back from Naruto as he reeled in agony. Naruto gave him a bored look, but he ignored that as he felt a profound wrongness about him. Something was terribly wrong, but he just did not know what. The 200-year-old villain stumbled back to his throne, completely exhausted and uncomfortable with the world right now. Ah, that was a bust. He groaned softly to himself as his hands held his head in despair. Then he froze as he finally figured out what felt so wrong with that world. The little hole in his head that let him give and take quirks at will was gone. Replaced with those accursed symbols in a golden light. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? Master, what happened? Kurogiri rushed into the room after hearing All for One screaming through the TV. Get him away from me. All for One commanded in his panic. He needed time to think. As the mist villain warped a grinned Naruto, All for One knew one thing. The door to All for One had been sealed shut. He was stuck with what he had forevermore. He was no longer the quirk thief. XXX. All Might grinned dangerously to himself as he and other heroes were brought to the bar or the warehouse where they figured the bulk of the villains to be. He himself was going to the bar, where he figured his son would be held. He had a feeling that Naruto would antagonize All For One enough after the man tried and failed to take the quirk from him that he would not want Naruto in his sight anymore. The snake would lay in wait for All Might so they could have their final clash. Plus, Naruto was absurdly powerful that he doubted All For One could kill his son, but it still worried him. Then there was Kana. She and other heroes would go to the warehouse. She was not a frontline fighter and stuck to her guns, literally. Their plan, to lay in wait and kill All For One once and for all. Then he could finally rest easy. The only way they figured they could do this was during the press conference having. It was a means to an end, a distraction for the masses while the heroes did their work unobstructed. The media always complicated things, sometimes making situations worse just for a story. Not this time. Besides, All For One knew they were coming. XXX. Smash. All Might roared, smashing down a wall while one of the police members with them hero group distracted the villains inside the bar with a fake pizza delivery. All Might was a bit caught off guard though when he saw a still-bound Naruto playing poker with some of the villains near the back, and it was obvious his infamous luck with gambling showing its face. They were losing badly to the boy who could not use his arms for the game. Instead, a bored-looking pirate was handling his cards. Unpredictable as always, that boy. As he was recovering his wits, Kamui Woods had bound the villains where they stood, or sat. Even the mist villain. However, it was both Sasuke and Dabi that tried to escape their prisons, only for Gran Torino to jet in a kick their heads into the wall, effectively stunning them. "Oh man, they took you out of retirement for me." Naruto laughed as the old man who grinned dangerously. "And miss a chance to see you in action, kid. Not a chance. I want see that old quirk thief be put down for good." "Good answer," Naruto replied as he casually stood up and broke his bonds as if they were not even there, causing the league members who were struggling to look at him in disbelief. Tamura stared hard at Naruto with All Might and the other heroes. This was his chance to leave All For One and become the anti-villain or hero he wanted, whether they become the League of Legends or just a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. They would do it on their own terms. The normal people would not get in their way, they feared them too much. It was time to change the world. He had to make sure of something. "Kurogiri, are you with me?" The mass of shadowy mist stared at his boss. He was no fool. He heard them talking about their plans of wanting to be more than just petty villains. How Sasuke Uchiha guided him better than All For One could. It was baffling how well, and it seemed that All For One's plans could go off the rails. Like Tamura, Kurogiri knew he was made as a cruel joke, one the Garaki brothers tried hiding from him. But his main function was to take care of Tamura the best he could, and if that meant freedom from his cruel boss and creators, he would take it. Always. And before he could be stopped, his black mist covered the room, obscuring the hero's vision. When the mist finally faded, the League of Villains was gone, but they left behind Naruto, showing he was not their priority. "What the?" All Might asked loudly. "Huh, so they ended up leaving after all." Naruto commented. "I had nothing but time here and so chatted, while playing card games with them. They probably understand that All For One would betray them in the end, or something. Looks like he lost his followers." He cackled at the black TV screen. "You are getting rusty in your old age, what with losing the ability to take give quirks and now your followers. You otherworldly cretin." All For One growled through the TV as gooey gray blobs started appearing all around them, producing various Nomu starting attacking the heroes and police All Might brought with them. Then that same horrible smelling goo burst out of both Naruto and All Might's mouths before swallowing them whole. "Shit, he is at the other location." Gran Torino grumbled but joined the other heroes, including Endeavor, in taking down the Nomu quickly. XXX. Naruto and All Might burst out of the goo in front of All For One in his shattered warehouse. All Might took a quick look behind him to see that Best Jeanist was in rough shape with a hole through his stomach. Behind him were the remains of the Camino ward with other heroes laying in the rubble, but a glint of light in the dark caught his eyes and he smiled. At least his lady was not hurt and was actively monitoring the situation. She may be fighting from a distance, but All Might felt proud. His whole family was ready to take down All For One. All For One though just looked done with today as he pinched the bridge of his nose. "I had this whole spiel about how I let Nana's kid survive, befriend him, and then killed him with his own grandson, the same grandson your successor turned away from me, All Might. Though I know that Sasuke boy had a hand in it as well. You what? All Might roared in panic, but Naruto managed to stop his potential rampage for a moment. All Might, I have killed all the families of all the past users of One for All. Did you really think I would not find the boy? All for One asked with a bored expression. It was going to be so much fun, rubbing it in your face as I destroyed you both physically, mentally, and emotionally. Especially as I killed your son. Doubtful, but give it a try. You never know what is actually going to happen. Naruto replied cheekily. Are you mocking me? Who am I kidding? Otherworldly or not, you hide behind a wall of fun and laughter. Not taking any of this seriously. All for One deduced. The only real power you have are those fancy ninja moves and the quirk I made all those years ago. I am both absolutely livid and impressed that you have survived this long and even turned my Tamura away from me. I would not count it as a win, but I will end you in All Might tonight, especially since you somehow sealed my stealing quirk. Oh, so you can't get the quirk even if you tried. All I am proud of you son. All Might laughed but still had a dangerous glint in his eye. Yes, yes, pride before the fall and all that. The ancient human sneered with rolled eyes. I am a demon lord that has survived the dawn of quirks. Neither of you have the guts nor the actual power to kill me. Oh please, I sent a goddess to heaven, it will be easy sending a demon back to hell. Naruto yawned as if the concept was beneath him. All Might cracked a smirk while All for One rolled his red eyes. Still not taking me seriously, though that is what I get for leaving the world to grow back to normal as I hunted down the users of that quirk I created. I am relegated to underground rumors that put fear into the hearts of heroes in this world but those of other worlders do not take stock in. However, you are a hero nonetheless, you won't go full power with all the other heroes and civilians lying about. I mean, you got me there. Naruto replied with a shrug before killing intent overwhelmed the area and sent All for One stumbling back a bit. All Might just grunted with a bit of sweat, having gotten used to this method of intimidation. That's why I sent my limbo clones to gather them up and send them to a safe location. It would have gone faster, but I let one explode and kill the hair Nomu you sent to try and capture Ragdoll. But her quirk was so useful. All for One roared, his patience finally running thin in the presence of Naruto and All Might. Some of his true nature of a petulant and greedy child leaking out. I am going to find way more enjoyment in killing you than I should. After all, Naruto had taken away the main function of his quirk and blocked him from taking away quirks from people, but most importantly, get his brother back. So be it, there was nothing left to lose here. Dr. Garaki could revive him anyway and make him some twisted Nomu for all he cared. Maybe then he would have a chance to take what he wanted. It was at that thought, a reminder of something long hidden finally made its way back to memory. He had collected their bodies for a reason after all. If my mere presence won't be enough to provoke you, maybe these will be enough. The Garaki brothers made those who held One for All useful again. Please play, I need a hero, either the Shrek version or the normal will do. Suddenly a brown gigantic hand burst out of the ground and pulled up an even larger body. This was Gigantomachia, one of All for One's greatest creations and bodyguard pet. All around him, multiple point of gray blobs appeared from nothing, much like how he had warped Naruto and All Might to him. The good doctor had been so happy to experiment on them too, All for One hoped he would not mind using them for a bit. Out from the blobs of goo, 7 figures emerged. They were all Nomu, what with their blackish-purple bodies and large exposed brains, but they all looked unique in their own ways. The leader of these Nomu clearly had the outline of a woman with silver hair that flowed out the back of her head. Flanking her right side was a male Nomu with what looked like a robotic head. The male Nomu to her right had a head protrusion much like Majin Buu. The next 2 Nomu stood behind them and they were obviously some sort of muscle. One being the form of a fat man and the other having the mutated trunk of an elephant. The next one was crouched low to the ground and actually had a hood made of that same black and purple skin covering its head and face. The final one was hovering above them all with gigantic webbed wings and 6 arms with turrets on them. All Might, Naruto, I would like for you to meet Gigantomachia and the last 7 of One for All. All for One announced with a dark smile and a look of sadistic insanity sparking in his eyes. Well, we combined them with what was left of them and their families to more suitable hosts. This is what happens when you cross me. Ready to take me seriously now, boy? Naruto's amusement died when he saw these things, a look of seriousness crossed his face. The Orochimaru of this world may not remember much of his past life, but he took the same steps into depravity with his brother and all for one. Monsters creating monsters to terrorize heroes and the rest of the world out of spite. One look at All Might told Naruto the man was in anguish at the prospect of fighting Nana, and he was absolutely livid. Naruto could not blame the man either. What was with villains in bringing up the past? First Obito took the bodies of the old Jinchuriki in the war, and now All for One used the bodies of the past users of One for All. This was sick and depraved, but this was the reality of it all. Yeah, I am taking this seriously. Naruto replied as he closed his eyes, and when he reopened them, they were the orange and lime green of this world's Sage Mode. He learned during the summer camp that it still provided him enhanced durability, but instead of a strength multiplier with One of All, it added other things. Things that would be useful in this fight. Naruto slammed his fist against his chest and the Akatsuki trench coat covered his body. Might as well play ode to his old heroic vigilante persona here a bit as well. All the vestiges were screaming for him to end One for All and their fucked up zombie bodies. He intended to keep that promise of easing their souls. The thing that started the fight was the robot Nomu's head exploding from a shoot of Lady Nagant's arm cannon. Come on boy, let's spar like old times. The Lady Nomu screamed out in glee with Nana's voice, literally flying towards a frozen All Might. Thankfully, he regained his sense at the last second before she speared him. He responded and punching her arm away, only for it and half of her body to liquefy, forcing him to miss. Her form seemed to inverse on itself as she solidified her body before sacrificing a leg to send All Might flying back with an explosion. XXX. In Naruto's mindscape, the first user Yoichi looked at the fight with a small amount of boredom. This was because what was supposed to have been his body was instantly taken out by Lady Nagant's bullet. He felt less connected to this fight, but he did watch his comrades lose their mind about how their bodies were desecrated. Don't get it twisted, he was beyond livid too, but he also expected this from his brother and somewhat expected the man to have a new body waiting for him when he finally got One for All. Disturbing back expected. However, he felt a slight connection with the body and so sent it a mental command. The result was it punch out the Nomu with the Majin Buu head extension, only to be immediately skewered by bones coming out of it, leaving the body mostly useless, and it tried regenerating what was left. Yoichi had a sneaking suspicion that when the regeneration was complete, he was not be able to use the body anymore. No time like this to experiment on his own with this connection. Speaking of, he felt the pull of another quirk in that body, and it was very spatial coded. It reached out to him, and when he nudged back, the Nomu's free arm sent a spatial distortion towards the elephant trunk Nomu that was fighting Naruto and popped it. No, the Nomu completely twisted in out itself and imploded. After that, the ex-robot-headed Nomu was turned into a pancake by the fat Nomu. Well, I tried. Yoichi replied out loud. The closest to him at the time, Daigoro, gawked at him before exploding. Yeah, but now I can't try and take some control of mine. Thanks a lot. Yoichi just shrugged while sucking on a nearly empty drink, creating that annoying almost empty sound. True, they need some sort of fatal injury on them to gain a reconnection to our zombie, but I doubt yours would have done something. He said, causing the others to gawk at him. What? You got a burn on fifth finally. Hikage replied neutrally. XXX. All for One watched as All Might batted away Nana's Nomu and then completely stopped the end's fat Nomu and chuck it at Gigantomachia, who casually batted it back down to earth with zero issue. Kyudai did warn him that these high-end Nomu were still not stable and their quirks would fail every now and then, but damn. The fat Nomu was supposed to be too dense for All Might to pick up, let alone throw, to say nothing of how that should have shattered Makia's hand. Then he saw another crack. The headless robot Nomu attacked one of the others. He had a feeling he knew what that was, but kept calm for now. Then he saw a news helicopter recording the fight, which meant now all of Japan was watching. Fine, he would make this a show. Makia, be ready, I want to try out that eldritch quirk again. The massive man paled, but nodded. He hated that quirk, but his loyalty to All for One stopped him from arguing. XXX. What is this? Fights I missed back home. Naruto grumbled to himself as the Nomu with the Majin Buu head sent its entire ribcage out to attack him. This was like the fight with Kimimaro before Rock Lee took over for him back then. Lee mentioned that fight was a blur because he was fighting drunk, but mentioned an extracted spine in a boneyard. Well, it was starting to turn his portion of the battle into a spiky boneyard before that fat Nomu shattered it from the landing. Naruto did not fancy fighting this world's versions of the Kimimaro and Choji, but here he was. The fight wasn't hard, but it was annoying. One punch to the fat Nomu sent it back to Gigantomachia, who sent it back to All Might's court. It was like they were playing a messed up version of hot potato with that guy. But Naruto still had to deal with the flying Nomu and the bone Nomu. One shot a barrage of superfast bullets, while the other sent its entire skeleton at him, but he was starting to see a rhythm. However, that rhythm was slightly off when the bone Nomu produced smoke to obscure his vision. Enough of this. Naruto growled as both jumped and tried to simultaneously skewer and flatten him. Shinra Tensai. The repulsion force blasted both Nomu back, shattering all the bones of the bone Nomu and denting in the front half of the fat Nomu. Naruto proceeded to curb stomp the fat Nomu's face into the ground, turning it into a fine paste. However, a giant mouth formed from the stomach of the fat Nomu, and before Naruto could even think that was gross, it breathed in, consuming the bone Nomu, right before Gigantomachia's fist came down and turned the rest of it into paste. That was my doing. Yoichi figured out we can somewhat control our dead bodies if you fatally wound them. Hikage helpfully supplied from within Naruto mind, who just grinned devilishly at the new information. Good job figuring that out. Naruto mused before running over to All Might's fight with Nana's Nomu and the one with the hood. Though, he did keep an eye on the flying Nomu as it circled around Gigantomachia's head like a vulture. Summoning Jutsu. Naruto called out, forming two giant toads from Black Whip's energy. One had a giant spiked club while the other had a couple of spears. The one with the spears chucked them into the wings of the flying Nomu, causing it to come crashing down to the ground. The toad with the club bashed in the hood Nomu's head. Naruto then grinned and he jumped onto the falling Nomu and ripped out its brain. The result was it finally stabilized its descent and Naruto rode of the monster like a glider. Kudo, Bruce, let's free Nana. Naruto roared, causing All for One to flinch that those two were awake and in control of their bodies again. To All for One's growing horror, the hood Nomu rolled up to Nana's Nomu before kicking it in the stomach with enough kinetic force to blow out her spine out of her back. Then, much like the other winged Nomu Naruto had to deal with in the villain factory, the flying Nomu hugged Nana's before exploding. Thanks, those two were tougher than I care to admit. All Might replied, dusting himself off, his hero suit blown and torn to shreds. He hated to also admit that Nana's Nomu got to him, causing him to take it easy on her, and he paid for it in burns. No problem. Now let's take care of All for One and the big guy. Naruto stated. All for One clapped his hands mockingly from atop Gigantomachia. The sound amplified by a quirk he had, and used that same quirk to talk to the annoyances down on the ground. Well done, though I did not calculate for them to be taken over by mere vestiges. Something we will have to account for when you two are dead. The plans I have for your bodies are brutal and I love it. Now, Giganto, crush them. Yes, master. Makia roared gleefully as he brought both fists down on the duo of blondes, only to be rebounded and sent on his gigantic ass. All for One shook his head to relieve him of the cobwebs that fall gave him. Looking back to All Might and Naruto, his face grew with rage at the sight before him. Like two beacons of light, Naruto and All Might glowed brightly in the night, and the world cheered in amazement and awe. All Might had entered his endless might form while Naruto was cloaked in the multiple colors of his Ten Tails mode. He would not bust out the Six Paths Sage mode for All for One, the man was not dangerous enough for that. Sure, both men were going overboard, but that was fine to finally end this monster, know this demon, and send him back to hell. When did they pull this out of their asses, or has One for All evolved to that point with them? So be it then. One for All replied with an edge to his voice. He smiled darkly at the cameras in the helicopter before touching Gigantomachia's shoulder while activating his eldritch quirk. The result was him dropping into Makia as if the giant was made of water. Gigantomashia's face twisted from revulsion and fear to calm and serene until he reopened his eyes, and All For One's red eyes stared balefully at Naruto and All Might. I should have used this long ago to kill you, better late than never. All For One laughed as the remains of the Nomu were absorbed into the giant along with some of the environment. All For One, full release. The very air around the gigantic villain stilled before violently exploding, destroying more of the area and obscuring the hero's vision. Then out of the dust, All For One's gigantic fist came down on them. The duo of blondes jumped in time, but All For One's use of overclock allowed him to grab All Might's leg and violently send him crashing back down to earth. He then grinned and sent dark balls of energy at Naruto. Naturally, Naruto dodged them and even used them as springboards, but things became heated when tendrils of earth came from below and tendrils of various forms of flesh blasted out of the giant. Shinra Tensai. Naruto roared, obliterating all the incoming projectiles. Naruto then formed a huge Rasengan and sent it into the giant All For One's stomach, blasting him back on his back. Sensing that something big was about to come from this monstrosity, Naruto rushed to both All Might's and Lady Nagant's sides. Hold on, Naruto yelled, taking them both into Limbo World with him just as One For All's form got back up. However, now it looked nothing like All For One nor Gigantomachia. Instead, it looked like a giant mass of power and flesh. All the quirks All For One ever took were emerging Akira style. Various forms of transformation and mutant quirks all merged into one disgusting form. Impure, explosion. It gurgled aloud and what was left of Kamino and some of the areas around it disappeared into a flash of horrific light not seen since before the dawn of quirks. The people watching all around Japan only saw this because the pilot of the helicopter had the forethought to move the air vehicle before it was too late. Once the blast was done, people watched in more horror than before. Not just because Kamino was just gone, but because of what remained. All For One's blob of quirks had reshaped and had taken on the form of an eldritch All Might. A mockery of the hero. In the Limbo World, Naruto growled that this guy was more dangerous than he thought. Not as strong as Kagaya for sure, but this guy was a world threat. It had been proven long before he came here with the dark times both All Might and Gran Torino talked about. The times where All For One was common knowledge because he ruled openly. Looking to the horrified heroes in his Limbo World to All Might and Lady Nagant, Naruto sighed. Well, no time like now to go tailed beast. They all looked at him strangely but he just winked. Back in the real world, people feared All Might and the kid he was saving were dead, killed by the monster that took All Might's twisted eldritch form. Even All For One thought he won and was smiling in a mocking manner. While All For One hated All Might and hated that he had to look like the man, he could not deny that it had the intended effect on the world. His glee was cut short though when he noticed a golden energy appear out of the void and he grew angrier and angrier, when it took the gigantic image of All Might himself in his endless might form. In reality, all the tailed beasts gave the beast mode a new form with Naruto, Toshi, and Kana all piloting from the dense energy construct. This was a clash of titans that the world needed to see. Why can't you just die? All For One boomed out. Why? Because I am here. All Might roared, surprised that this energy construct also amplified his voice. All For One groaned at the time-tested phrase All Might always spewed out, and to finally end it one and for all, he built all the energy he could around one of his fists in a way All Might would use. Impure annihilation. Inside the construct, Naruto did the same. He gathered enough energy for a tailed beast bomb. Then All Might added his endless might's energy into it and both gave the tiny orb of power to Kana, who put it in her arm rifle. Meanwhile the golden construct of All Might reared its own fist for a punch of its own. Smiling, the small family yelled together, United States of Smash. The two giant constructs of All Might clashed with a violent boom. However, because the main point of the Yagi family's attack was distraction, Lady Nagant was able to shoot the volatile ball of destructive energy straight to the core of All For One, completely annihilating the man once and for all. The result the world saw, well, it was a brilliant flash of light before the dark construct began to disintegrate into the wind. The golden construct of All Might smiled to the world while pumping his giant fist to the air, showing the world he had won. All Might was still number one in the eyes of the people. Everything was different now and everyone knew it. This was not just because the ancient quirk thief, that everyone knew about in some form but stayed quiet about in hopes that the boogeyman of their world would leave them alone, was dead. They had all seen it on TV, All Might had finally taken him down and even showed off a few new forms. He had pulled out all the stops to keep them safe. Crime even went down a bit. However, the world was shocked once again when All Might called for a press conference right after things settled down a little. All Might stood before a podium like most heroes who wanted to announce something brave or something that would destroy their career, so the world held their breath as the man spoke, smile and booming voice keeping their attention. Toshinori smiled at the camera like a pro. As you all know, I have been the top hero for such a long time, 40 years in fact. All with a purpose in mind, to bring us out of the era of chaos that preceded even the more chaotic dawn of quirks. I used my career as a way to both keep the peace and to train myself so that one day, I could defeat All for One. I did it for you, yes, but I did it mostly for another, my master who has long been dead. Some of you might remember the old hero Nimbus. I knew her as Nana Shimura. She was like a second mother to me after my parents perished in a random attack and then All for One took her from me as well. I had vowed then that I would change the world somehow and all you see around you, are the results. I came here for an announcement. I realize I have neglected myself being the sole pillar of peace. I am in my 50s, old, I know, but in the last few years, I become happy in a different way. With All for One finally gone, I can finally retire and have a family. Most of you probably already realized I have a relationship with the hero, Lady Nagant. We already have a few kids she adopted and I am happy to announce, with her permission, that we are expecting. All Might smirked a little bit at that, letting the world digest the information he just gave them. Him retiring to settle down in his 50s was a big deal after all. With that said, I am still me. I am not some helpless old man, I still have plenty of power as you have seen. If something world-threatening happens, I will be here with my family and my students at UA. That being said, it is time for other heroes to finally get the spotlight they deserve. Heroes, now it is your turn. Your turn to rise up and become pillars of peace yourselves. Transform this world I helped maintain into something beautiful. It is time for you all to rise up. He paused for a second as his body took on the endless might form and struck a victory pose, and go beyond, plus ultra. XXX. I must say, your stunt with All for One paid off. Nezu stated casually with Naruto as the teen set up his room in the New Heights Alliance dorm. So much so, that I was finally able to convince the board to allow UA to have a dorm set up. I really wasn't thinking that far ahead. I just wanted to get rid of a villain that loomed over everyone. I had enough of that back home and if I could change things earlier for them, I would have. Now I am just cleaning up here. I figured as much. Stories of old folk heroes had much of the same sentiment of what could have been and what they could have changed. Nezu replied thoughtfully. But we must look to the future and that is why I am keep us more secure with the dorm system. Keeping everyone on campus with beefed up security will help with that. All for One is gone though, Naruto responded with a touch of confusion. Do you really think it is necessary now? Good point, but tell me, after your defeat of Madara and Kagaya end with just them? No, Sasuke rose up for some revolution and sent me here. Naruto groaned at that. Exactly. Nezu cheered, observing Naruto as the boy finished up his room. It was a strange hodgepodge of a bed, training room, and entertainment, with a laptop. There was even a desk that the laptop sat upon, with what Nezu assumed were prank supplies. What with the boy's background, Nezu assumed he used them for more training. Power invites challenge. It is true, All Might has stepped down from hero work, but you, your class, and all the ranked heroes still hold enough power that those with their own and clashing viewpoints will rise up to challenge you. Keeping my students safe for the time being is my top priority until you all can properly defend yourselves and the public. I suppose that makes sense. Naruto nodded to the mystery animal principle. Oh, and speaking of this Sasuke boy, I took the liberty of looking him up. Nezu started as they left his room to head back down to the communal living room where Himiko was waiting on him. They were the first ones who had arrived and moved in, so they were going to use that peace and quiet to watch one of Himiko's favorite shows. The show was unsettling and not everyone would want to watch the Netflix TV show called Dracula, but they were about done with the 3-episode show and wanted to see how it would end. It turns out he has a whole family here. While his parents are nothing of note, he has mostly gone off-grid and then joined the League of Villains. His brother is an up-and-coming illusion hero that used to work under the Mad Bomber hero who died recently. Itachi is here too. Wait, Deidara was here for a bit as well. Naruto asked, a bit freaked out. Indeed, Nezu continued on cheerfully as if this was not world-shattering news to Naruto. Doing a little bit more research into individuals you have mentioned over time, I have noticed a trend. You see, for those that were resurrected for a time in your world, those same people seem to have switched off here for a bit. Either death like that Deidara fellow, coma, or gone through a depressive state that makes them unable to cope with our world and shut down for a bit. It was quite strange to loved ones, observers, and doctors, though the theory they are transmigrates from another world and forcibly brought back does seem to work for these individuals. Others that you have mentioned, well, they are here and some are just not. Are you going to share who those people are? Naruto asked a bit urgently. No, I don't think I will. Nezu replied solemnly. What would be the point of reminding people of a horrible past they cannot remember? So far, it is only Sasuke who remembers you, and that is because of the tumultuous past you shared together. Both you and your own transmigrant ancestors. Let's keep it that way, and I will keep an eye out for Sasuke for you. You don't have to do this all on your own anymore. Naruto. Hurry up. Thank you, Nezu. Naruto replied after a moment and left the rat to join his sister on the couch. He still struggled with doing this on his own after all this time. Any time, Nezu replied cheerfully, and once Naruto had left, he frowned down at his phone. There a picture of Itachi was displayed as a possible candidate for a teacher in the future. As he left, he looked back once more at the blonde duo of teens. There was another reason he refused to tell Naruto the whereabouts of past friends. He would not like where some of them ended up. It was best to let the war veteran from another world enjoy his peace. XXX. Enji Todoroki stared at his meal as it grew cold. In any other circumstance, he would be destroying his training room in anger that he would be the new number one through default thanks to All Might finally stepping down. He knew he should be happy. He would finally achieve his goal of being the number one hero of Japan. However, he felt empty. No, empty was the wrong word. Burnt out seemed more accurate given his usual anger at everything was not there, and it was also because he had been reflecting on his way of life and past thanks to the word of that admittedly scary teen. Seriously, what technique did that brat use? His went to Shoto, his masterpiece, as he had always called the boy. He had robbed the boy, hell all his children of a proper childhood in some way because of his burning ambition to beat All Might and be the number one. He forced Shoto to be the best he could, no, better than him, so he could live vicariously through the boy should he somehow gain the top spot before All Might retired. Now, it was pointless. The man had already retired and his son hated him. Well, they were trying to mend something that was not there. The boy's rebellion was justified. He had been training the boy to fight All Might, just like that Naruto boy said. His eyes then traveled the three empty spots at the table. Toya was long gone, all in a bid to control his world so he could continue what Enji himself instilled in the boy. Become a hero that would surpass him. Toya was gone and it was all his fault. Next was Natsuo who, while still here, hated his guts. When the boy did not have the desired quirk, Enji completely ignored him like he didn't exist. The hate was justified and the boy never ate with his siblings when he was around. After that was his own wife, who because of him and his actions to get the perfect child with the perfectly balanced quirk, had gone insane. He had used and abused her in a quirk marriage that caused her to lose her mind and forced him put her in a mental hospital. It caused their children to grow up without their mother. That had hurt him as well at the time until he buried his emotions. Despite their quirk marriage, they did grow to love each other. Hell, he still did, it was why he never remarried. As a monster, he still had limits. That being said, he highly doubted she still loved him. She never responded to a single letter he sent her. Letters that more often than not, showed off his true regretful and thoughtful self. Enji was the angry husband, Endeavor was the hot-headed and highly ambitious hero. And then letters showed off who he once was. It probably confused and scared the woman all the more away from him. Finally, there was Fuyumi, his broken little girl that desperately tried to keep the Todoroki family together at the expense of her own health, probably both mental and physical. She had been through all the trauma of their family and still came back despite it all. She took care of her younger brothers. She took care of him while tiptoeing around his unjustified anger. She taught and took care of kids at the school she worked at. She sacrificed her life for them. She could have left to started her own life, and now that he was thinking about it more, she should have. The three parts of Enji Todoroki were finally coming together, and it made him realize, he was a horrible man, a horrible father, and an even worse husband. He was a monster. "I am sorry," he said lowly. Both of his children froze mid-bite before Fuyumi asked, "What was that?" "I am not the father I should have been, I am sorry." Enji replied softly, but with him, it still carried. His stoic nature was warring with his body to form some semblance of emotion on his face. "Before any of you were actually born, I just wanted you carry on my own ambition, but I tore this family apart. Also I could beat All Might at being number one. But I went about it the wrong way. Despite our limitations on our quirks, I was preparing you all to fight All Might subconsciously. I should have prepared myself to be, like All Might, personable. He makes people feel safe while I just intimidate. Shoto, I am sorry I put you through hell just to achieve my goal. Fuyumi, I am sorry I basically forced you to keep this family together in place of your mother. I placed too much on your shoulders. I still love my wife, and no amount of apologizing will ever be enough for what I did to her, or any of you." From the living room, Natsuo nearly choked on his food when he overheard his sperm donor talking. He hated his old man with a passion. He doubted they would ever get along. At least the man now saw himself for the monster he saw him as. "I am sorry I rejected Natsuo. I will try to make it up to him, if he will allow it," Enji said aloud, but a scoff from the other room made him doubt the boy would allow it. He did not blame the boy. "If I could change things, I would, and maybe Toya would be alive." Shoto stared at his father before looking down at his cold soba. Not once had his father ever apologized for anything. Sure, the man had softened up on him after the sports festival. But he figured that was the best he would ever get. Thinking about his friends, Izuku and Naruto, about what they would possibly do in this situation because he was utterly lost, he decided he would try and give the old man a chance. One last chance. Looking back up, he was greeted with the sight of Fuyumi giving her father a happy hug, like all her hard work was finally paying off. Their father did look uncomfortable for a moment, but he let it happen. The silent tears streamed down. His father seemed genuine. All this right before moving into the dorms. It was a bit much. XXX. Move-in day. It was sure to be chaotic, but that was fine. This class thrived on a bit of chaos every now and then. Despite all the moving trucks, the class was ordered to gather in the living or common room of the dormitory. A place they could all hang out together after classes were done and they were not training. Aizawa walked in with his usual aloof nature, causing them to quiet down instantly and pay attention to what he had to say. Inwardly, he smirked at that. "While it is surprising that we were all able to come back and be here, we must push on. I am still annoyed at Naruto for taking the risk of allowing himself to be captured by the League of Villains despite being able to handle himself. I will admit, it was better than any alternative." "No kidding," Setsuna shouted. "They came and wrecked the place. If Naruto, Izuku, Shoto, and Fumikage had not taken out their heavy hitters, I doubt most of us would have survived." She was glad. Toru and her were ordered to get the others on the trail to safety before something worse happened. Itsuka and Tetsu from Class B were able to take out the knockout gas kid while her and a few others led a rampaging dark shadow to that gimp with the iron teeth. And Shoto kept that blue flame villain in a stalemate, which seemed to irk the guy to no end. Indeed, all of this could have been a lot worse. Now pay attention. I will explain a little bit about your new home and room assignments. Aizawa stated while gesturing vaguely at the whole place. He continued. Each student dormitory holds one class. Girls are on the right while boys are on the left. The entire first floor is a common area. That's where you will find the living, entertainment room, kitchen, dining room, baths, and laundry room. The works. There is even a courtyard. Inasa cheered excitedly as he dragged Shoto over to see it. So spacious and new. Mina said excitedly while Toru and Setsuna vibrated with excitement. I'm living in a mansion. Ochako stated in a dazed start before falling over, only for Tenya and Izuku to catch her before she fully fell. She was used to much humbler abodes. Setsuna could not help but smirk at the humble girl. Great, introverts like Tokiyami and I will get no privacy. Hitoshi deadpanned, causing the bird boy to sadly nod in sympathy while others just laughed at them. They were extroverts, they would never understand them. Don't be like that, Himiko replied cutely while clinging to his arm. If you did not have an extrovert in your life, you would think people did not like you because of your quirk. She was not wrong. Anyway, living quarters start on the next floor. Aizawa continued after letting them marvel at their living situation, then gestured to a stack of papers that showed off room assignments. A few boys and girls on each level. Everyone gets their own room and you should be comfortable. You have your AC, toilets, fridges, and closets. Naruto was right, these rooms are about the size of my closet. Good thing he told me to plan ahead for that. Momo mused while looking the dimensions of her room on paper. I suppose I can make do with this. Make do, she says. This is as big as my apartment. Ochako exclaimed in shock, knowing the rich girl was not trying to humble brag. Aizawa gestured to the stack of papers and the mini-map on the wall. Sometimes his students could be smart one moment and total idiots the next, it was better to be prepared. These are your dorm assignments. The bare essentials you sent ahead have already been placed there and now you can direct your hired movers to them. So, spend the day unpacking and getting settled. I will tell you about your new lessons tomorrow, for now get to work. XXX. While Aizawa, Smintos, Midnight, and Ectoplasm were leading the class to a new area, they reminisced about how they spend their night. After they were done setting up their rooms, they had a little contest. Fumikage had the most exotic room due to his interests in edgy and fringe items, and the perpetual darkness of the room. Momo and Himiko actually for most beautiful room. Momo had added her high-class charm to it while Himiko's had the elegance of an old castle with ballroom class, and it was filled to the brim with cute plushies. The room that won was actually Kyoka's. It showed off her talent of singing and playing all sorts of instruments, complete with a soundproof mini-studio. I believe I mentioned this already. Aizawa announced, acquiring everyone's attention, but your main focus this summer is to acquire your provisional hero licenses. Do not take this lightly. A hero license means you are responsible for human lives. You can imagine the exam to receive one is very difficult. Only 50% of students pass the tests required for these permits each year. I welcome the challenge, Inasa shouted excitedly. Good. In order to prepare, we will be having you all create 2 ultimate moves. My fellow teachers will be helping you all do so in Gym Gamma. Aizawa explained as they reached the building and opened to the door to find All Might and Lady Nagant already in there and ready for them. Gym Gamma or the training dining land was actually my idea. I can mold this place to fit everyone's needs. Smintos stated humbly as he manipulated the ground to form a column of cement. Please allow me a question. Tenya announced and the teachers all grinned at the boy. What is the advantage of having ultimate moves for the provisional exam? Calm down, Aizawa replied tiredly. The job of a hero is to save people from all sorts of dangers, crime, accidents, you name it. The exam tests you on how well you are able to deal with all situations. Granted, you will not always be fighting, but your ability to gather information and make quick decisions is how you will be judged. Aizawa paused for a moment. I probably should not be saying this, but at least one part of the exam will have you showing off your battle ability. Naruto, how is it for you in this, Forest of Death? Well, each of our teams went in all around the forest at the same time. The challenge lasted up to 5 days with only your ability to survive, not just the deadly forest with larger than average plants and animals that can kill you, but other teams. You fight each other for 2 scrolls that you use to gain access to the central tower. There was some riddle and the answer was the open both scrolls at the time while only at the tower. It was a test to see how well you follow instructions because you could not open the one scroll you had or else you fail. I think the point Aizawa is looking for here is that like in the Forest of Death, other teams or schools will come directly at us to eliminate us first. That was how it was for us back then and I see no difference here because of the sports festival. They will know most of what we can do already. Exactly. All Might boomed, trying to lighten the mood due to the subject matter of the Forest of Death. Honestly, both him and Kana were glad Naruto was away from that place. It is called the UA. Crush, and these ultimate moves are a way for you all to surprise them with something new. And it won't just be fighting, but this information will allow you to move on to the next round of the exam to show off your ability to communicate and cooperate and lead others. Every year a new test is used to evaluate these qualities, but rest assured it is not like Naruto's Forest of Death. One thing is especially important. Midnight continued. If you want to be a pro hero, you must be able to prevail in battle. If you are prepared, you will not have to worry, and those of you with an ultimate move will have stronger results. Your circumstances should not dictate the results of your future battle. Smintas added helpfully, and Hitoshi took that to heart. His quirk was more like Aizawa's, limited, but he would make it work. Learn to be consistent and you be a great asset on the front lines. Your ultimate move doesn't necessarily have to be an actual attack. Ectoplasm added, take Ida's Recipro Burst for example. This sort of temporary boost in speed is valuable enough that it falls into the category of excellence we are looking for. This touched Tenya's heart that he was actually doing an ultimate move all along, but now he had to make another. Kana smiled at the boy before addressing Naruto. Naruto, we know you like to sing and dance to throw off your opponents, but I know you have a few more moves to throw people off. I have, quite a few. Naruto cheekily said before holding out his hand to form a glowing and swirling ball of blue energy. This swirling ball of energy is called a Rasengan. Naruto looked to Smintas, as if asking to use his cement pillar he made, and got a nod. The blonde casually walked over and thrust the ball of energy into it, completely toppling it over with the power. Holy shit dude. That is amazing. Inasa cheered in excitement while others either had calculating looks on their faces or just gawked. I am sure you remember Izuku and I's battle with All Might. Naruto continued. I have a lot of other ninja moves like turning the ground to lava, the swamp of the underworld technique that I was taught once upon a time but never use, or the many variations of my Rasengan technique, like the magnet release version to immobilize. But if you want me to show off another I can. This I gotta see. Kirishima replied, excited next to a vibrating Inasa. Smintas, if you would create a small field of those pillars at the other end of the gym. The teacher stared at the boy for a second in disbelief, looked to Aizawa who nodded, and then shrugged before doing the request. Once the man was done, Naruto created a tiny Rasenshuriken at the tip of his pointer finger with two small energy hands. It produced a tiny bell-like screech that hurt their ears a bit. This move is called Rasenshuriken. He then threw the mini attack and they watched a controlled but large explosion of energy obliterate all the cement towers. How have you been hiding this much power all along? Mina asked, a bit of hysterics in her voice. And is why I like to have fun with my illusions instead. Naruto responded almost sheepishly. I see. I have a lot of work to do if I ever want to match you in a fight. Momo replied with an exhausted tone, but a spark of energy formed in her eyes as they smiled at one another. Kyoka also took this as a challenge as she punched her fists, her new sonic gloves reverberated a bit. The idea taken and refined from the Island battle in Mei's mind made it shine into existence. I'll say, Inasa replied steadily, getting the group to look at him as he was pale and jaw to the floor. That thing had so many microscopic wind blades, it has just took out everything in that area. Well, this is the sort of thing you can achieve with the right knowledge and a shit ton of hard work. Most of my attacks are wide range and highly destructive. Naruto admitted, now genuinely sheepish. Aizawa growled under his breath that a child should not have the power to level fucking armies, but that was in the past. Naruto had the power to protect people from disasters and villains. That is what mattered. Seeing the looks the students had, as if intimidated but ready to challenge themselves, made him proud. The teachers looked unnerved for a good reason though, and he would have Naruto inform them later. The boy was mostly here to help the others get their ultimate moves in order. The training camp was interrupted, but the practice you did get in to develop your quirks was part of the process needed to create and refine these ultimate moves. Now that you are caught up, you will be working hard for the next 10 days or so. This is how you will be spending the remainder of your summer vacation. Prepare yourselves for intensive training. In addition, you should think about improving your costumes with Mei now that you all have a better understanding of your quirks. I expect you to go plus ultra. Do you have it in you? Yes sir. XXX. In between writing down requests for everyone's costume upgrades, Mei was actually working on something with Lady Nagant. I see, so you have noticed that most people with gun quirks and scope quirks like yours are more connected than most realize. Lady Nagant replied proudly, glad the girl getting it. Bullet time. Mei confirmed. I know most see it as a joke or something only in video games, but I thought I was able to tap into it a little at the training camp. This is harder for me than I thought. Of course, it is going to be harder for you of all people. Kana stated with a sympathetic looking. You are a highly intelligent and creative girl, so it will be difficult to slow your mind down. Tell you what, for this training I want you to give me all your ideas for everyone's costumes and I will give them to the support department. You, me, and Naruto are going to work on the first step in fully acquiring bullet time. Slowing you mind through meditation. Ooh, this is going to be hard. Mei groaned while pulling at her dreads, causing Kana to laugh. XXX. Kyoka was adjusting her metallic backpack that held her transforming sonic cannon. She had a few ideas for ultimate moves and they required Mei or the support department to change a few things. One focused on the cannon itself. Her plan was to adjust the mechanisms to if she wanted. The machine did not just produce one large cannon, but many. She called it the omnidirectional sonic sound wave. One cannon turning into two. One cannon turning into a shell around her and blasting everything with sound. That last one was for when she was alone. A second idea focused on a guitar and was inspired by Naruto's singing and dancing routine. Why could she not do the same? All her life, she had been using music to express herself. Adding a transforming guitar into her backpack sounded like a great idea to her. Guitar mode, tuning fork sword and shield mode, and even an axe mode. Her final idea revolved around her new gauntlets. The idea of beatboxing to one of her parents, or even a favorite band's song appealed to her greatly. These were going to be fun. XXX. Hitoshi actually had a few ideas for his own and they were not all related to his quirk, either. They were part of his Sentai-inspired suit. One was related to his helmet specifically, the rhinoceros beetle horn at his crown. That could be used to flip and stun thanks to the taser installed. Or he could just detach it and combine it with his tonfa weapons to create an electro staff. Another was called the flashy getaway. He knew he was not even close to being the strongest in the class and Aizawa did mention he had to get away from villains that overpowered him, so Hitoshi took that to heart. He had launchable canisters made of reflective power. When it reacted to a small amount of electricity, created a bright flash effect that would let him escape. Some of it was explosive too. Finally, he had his voice changer connected to a small speaker system on his suit. He could throw his voice like a ventriloquist to confuse people into answering him or just amplify his voice to he could catch many in his command quirk. Vocal ventriloquism is what he liked to call this move. XXX. Momo realized she technically already had two ultimate moves. Creation Burst, when she ingested a superfood pill, allowing her to create huge items for a short time without consequence. This led to her create Iron Defense, which was just her exoskeleton she made in the sports festival. Her next idea harkened back to her family's profession in creating support gear. She knew all sorts of gear her parents had made and being friends with Mei and Melissa gave her an edge. Her lucky bag technique allowed her to be a support specialist on the field and help her fellow heroes. Finally, was her full arsenal move. This allowed her create an arsenal of offensive and defensive gear to protect herself and others on the battlefield. Now she just needed to work on her speed to create all this in a pinch. XXX. Naruto stood impossibly still while Mei faced him with a somewhat calm look and her guns at the ready. Meditation was working, Mei could not deny that, but there were times when her nerves rose and this felt like this time was one of them. It was like an old cowboy shoot-off. Slowly, Naruto opened his eyes to reveal they were a mix of the toad orange and a bit of lime green. This world sign that he had entered sage mode. Mei took that as a sign as she breathed in deeply, watching as the world slowed to a crawl as she entered bullet time finally. Quick as a whip, she pointed her guns at Naruto and fired multiple shots. For a moment, it looked like Naruto would do nothing and allow himself to be hit, then he raised an arm, his hand showing a stopping motion. The bullets froze in midair, surrounded by a distortion in the air. This was the effect of this world's Sage mode. While both gave him extra durability, this version gave mental powers over raw strength and potent chakra. While a bit of a bummer on the chakra side, mental powers to control and stop things in their tracks was new and exciting. XXX. Before anyone knew it, the days of training and perfecting ultimate moves were done and they class found themselves shuttled to a facility where they would take the provision licensing exam. I can't help but be a little nervous, Kyoka stated as they got off the bus. Do not think like that. We will be fine, Naruto replied, trying to cheer up one of his girlfriends and the rest of the class. I sure hope so, though I do wonder what they will make us do. Hitoshi nervously stated. Like Naruto said, we got this. We trained our asses off just to pass. Inasa roared out confidently. Correct. Aizawa injected, a bored look on her tired face, but on the inside, he was proud of his students. If you can pass this test and get your provisional licenses, then you novice eggs will hatch into chicks. You will be semi-pros. I expect your best. Alright, I cannot wait to be a heroic chicken. Denki cheered. I am sure that sounded way better in your head. Itsuki deadpanned. Do not be like that. Let us call out the usual to hype us up. On my mark. Eijiro called out, which got to the class to grin widely and cheer with him. Plus ultra. Ah, isn't that cute, fresh meat getting exited. A voice called out. Turning, the class saw a group of uniformed students with the leader giving them a cruel mocking smirk. They were from Shiketsu and also wore their signature military hats, white button-down shirts, and dark blue jeans. The one that spoke had long but somewhat messy white hair and shark-like teeth. Another scoffed at their loud-mouthed teammate, this one with purple hair, and said, always so rude, especially when we are in the same boat. Calm down, Suigetsu. You are no fun. Suigetsu grumbled before taking a sip of water from a water bottle as he walked away from the 1A. The girl of their group gave Naruto a challenging smirk, but for the life of the blonde, he could not figure out why. I can't figure out why he looks so familiar. Naruto muttered to himself as he took note of his class mentioning their school's rivalry. I would not worry about that group too much, Inasa stated cheerfully, carefully omitting that if he and Shoto had not gotten along, he would have been a Shiketsu student and rival to this class. He was glad everything worked out because he loved UA so much and gained so many awesome friends. Eraser. I know that scowl anywhere. Another voice rang out, catching the class attention because they knew her own teacher apparently. The lady that walked up, to Izuku's excitement and infinite hero knowledge, was the hero Ms. Joke. Her quirk outburst made people laugh, making it easier for her to take on distracted villains. I saw you on TV for the sports festival, but it's been a while since we were this close in person. Let's get married. No, Shota shot back instantly, his form even more exhausted than when he has to deal with present Mike. Inside, the man was screaming at the world to end him already. Ha! You are a real laugh riot, buddy. Ms. Joke roared out with laughter. As usual, you are impossible, Joke. Droned out Aizawa. Come on, imagine it. If was your wife, you'd have a future of constant laughter. That sounds like an actual nightmare. Naruto felt out their emotions and he was utterly confused about the two teachers' interactions. On the outside, one was obviously blocking the other pretty hard, while on the inside, they just seemed comfortable around each other. This was weird. It seems like you two are close, Sue observed. Our agencies were near each other, Joke helpfully supplied. As young heroes striving to make a difference in the world, a mutual love bloomed. No, it did not. I do miss your quick retorts. Joke laughed again, and it seems her own quirk affected her personality a bit. You are my favorite person to tease, future husband. So Joke, if you are here, that must mean. That's right, Joke replied happily as she gestured to the quickly approaching students, obviously from another school. This time being from Ketsubutsu Academy. The students all wore gray polos as a uniform. Over here everyone. This is UA. This time, actual negative emotion came through for Naruto, and despite their friendly demeanor, they intended to take down UA. The first chance they had. Though their leader could tone down the fake positively some, it was getting obvious to them. Despite that, Naruto held out a hand and their leader, Shindo, grabbed it. You could tone down the false positivity. You may think it is throwing us off, but it is the opposite. Naruto announced, bringing out a small amount of killing intent to freeze their new rivals in place for a bit. Despite that, I look forward to a fun performance. Yeah, I bet you are Blondie. Shindo stated after he recovered. I have seen you more than the rest of your class. I have a feeling if I can see past those illusions, I can easily take you down. You can certainly try. Naruto replied with a simple smile and the two shook hands, each squeezing harder until they had to let go. Hey, get your costumes and head to orientation, there is no time to waste. Aizawa ordered, tired of this. As they left, Ms. Joke overheard some of the UA students talk about how they were weirdly famous. Eraser, you did not warn you kids about this test. Aizawa just walked away without saying a word. XXX. It was subtle, but Naruto felt it the moment the agents closed the doors to the orientation room once everyone seemed to be there. The room was moving and given the technology of this world, he assumed that or whoever spoke and gave instructions, they would then be dropped right in the middle of where they need to take this test. Too bad this tech was not in the ninja world, they would have had a blast with it. Still, the crowd and their growing anxiety reminded Naruto too much of the beginning of the Chunin exams. He was smarter now, but he hoped the first test was not some boring written test. Oh, okay then, let's do this exam thing. A tired tan-haired man announced from the podium and Naruto felt for the guy. Not only did it seem his quirk worked against him, but he was way too tired from his job. He was on the constant verge of falling asleep. The man reminded Naruto a bit of Shikamaru. I'm from, the Heroes Public Safety Commission, name's Mara. My circadian rhythm is all screwed up. Aw man, I have been swamped lately and I have not gotten much rest. We are too short-staffed, I am so tired. With that confession, I'll now begin orientation. About the content of this licensing exam thing, basically 1,540 examinees compete in a free-for-all exercise or whatever we are calling it this year. See, we already have a lot of pros around, and since Stain's arrest, many people have expressed doubts about heroes and society. But when you really think about it, getting paid makes sense. If you are going to risk your life to save someone, why shouldn't you ask for a reward? That is just the way the world works. God, I could use a coffee. Anyway, whether they are in it for compensation or out of a sense of duty, we have got too many heroes working together in the streets these days to keep villains at bay. Honestly, the time between an incident begins and when it is taken care of is ridiculously short. You are all here trying to receive your provisional licenses, so you will be swept up in this tiresome mess yourselves soon enough. Those of you who do not have the speed, frankly just will not cut it. Which is why that is what you will be tested on. The first 100 students to fulfill the requirements will pass today. Naturally, this caused an uproar amongst all the gathered students, but Naruto was surprised it was even that many. Enko said the Forest of Death was meant to cut the number of genin in half back in the day. It did and more, since some teams took each out entirely, but then again, there had still too many that day and they had a mini tournament to cut the number even more. This exam was fine and he was sure his classmates would do fine. This contest was pretty simple. Instead of scrolls, you have 3 electronic targets placed on your body. 3 strikes to anyone and you're out, with the last person remaining, getting the credit to move on to the next round when you have taken out 2 people. This was way too simple. Oh, and the ground stopped moving. This was going to be a widespread challenge, wasn't it? The ceiling opened and the place shook as the walls all fell. They were smack dab in the middle of a gigantic arena with multiple biomes for the test takers to run in. Surrounding everything was the arena walls filled with mostly empty stands except for their teachers and commission agents. Yep, Naruto's hunch had been right. It was a widespread challenge. Which meant they all had to hide before the test started so they would not immediately get hit. As Naruto looked around and put on his given targets, he thought about what he would do here. Simply blitzing everyone in speed would be incredibly boring to him. One thing came to mind: it would show off more of his power and throw people off to no end. However, it would eat up a lot of his chakra, so the following illusion would not be as great. Do not worry Kit, we got this. Allow us to perform that jutsu so you have the energy to show up all these stupid humans. Kurama rumbled through his mind with amusement. The tailed beast had come around to his thinking of being boring. They were embarrassed that they had not thought of it first. As his inner beasts gathered the energy needed, Naruto called out to his classmates. Alright, they will be gunning for us, if you remember. We can stick together or split up. Either way, I have a great performance idea. As much as I want to, Inasa stated before slowly walking away. My control over wind is widespread and I would rather not get you all caught up in way I have planned. Agreed, Shoto mentioned as he walked away. Like you, I can cause widespread destruction with ice and fire. I do not want to get you involved though I have a feeling you will anyway. Whatever you have planned, Naruto, I will use it to my advantage. Hey, I will give you all plenty of room to take out your targets with my distraction of a performance. Naruto replied with a cheesy smirk, getting the others to smile at the possibilities. They decided to stick close as they neared a mountain area. XXX. Eraser. Your fly is down. Joke laughed out in the stands, trying to get a rise out of her fellow teacher. Why is it that I can't get a moment of peace and quiet in my life? Aizawa lamented to himself. I can't believe you still have 22 students. It is really unusual for you to still have this many. You must really like them. Joke commented after getting a hold of herself. Not really. Huh, don't be embarrassed. It's so like you. Joke continued. Please date me. Shut up. But really. Joke continued, her demeanor turning a bit smug. You know what is about to happen down there and yet you did not mention a thing to your class. Every year the test is different, but one thing is always the same. It is kind of like a tradition during the licensing exam. Most of the students who compete in the provisional exam have pretty equal footing, except for one school. UA comes at a severe disadvantage because the top school's televised sports festival, they already know their powers and weaknesses. Kind of funny, isn't it? Still no answer from the brooding tired man. If you like your class this year, you should have warned your students about all this. We have seen it time and time again in this exam. The UA crush. So, you think we will be taken out? Aizawa finally replied, catching Emi's attention. I do not really see a reason why I should have warned them, they figured that out on their own. Nothing would have changed if I said anything to them, they would have had to figure out a way to overcome this either way. Real heroes could turn this situation around, besides if they become pros, they will face more villains who already know their quirks. Perhaps at UA, we look a little further ahead than other schools. XXX. As soon as the students of Ketsubutsu unleashed a fair amount of rubber balls at Class 1A, they were immediately frozen in midair by Naruto's new mental sage abilities and then swept away by the rest of the class, new and improved quirks. Naturally, the students of Ketsubutsu had a few countermeasures if UA had survived their first round of attacks. One student could stiffen the rubber balls and basically turn them into rocks so they hurt more when hit, and another student possessed an aimbot quirk that shot the balls into the earth so UA had no idea where they were coming from. I got this, heartbeat distortion. Kyoka announced as she punched the ground, sending a couple heartbeats through the earth to disrupt the attack while still in the ground, making whatever Ketsubutsu did as useless. She then punched again to loosen the ground underneath them, hoping to make things hard for their rival school. Out of the way, their defenses are too strong right now, I will take care of that, Shindo ordered his class. Once they were all behind him, he yelled out his own ultimate move. Maximum force, tremoring earth. Shindo's vibration quirk caused total havoc and broke apart the earth in a controlled earthquake. And Naruto, he could not help but smile. XXX. Who has that much power? And what school are they from? A student from another school screamed from an entirely different zone on the other side of the arena as they and their fellow classmates watched in horror as the earth was upended on itself. They were currently in a cityscape zone and could still feel the tremors from here. Don't lose focus, there are enemies everywhere. Another shouted, hoping to align their attention away from things that were not an immediate threat. Atop a high-rise building, Inasa observed both the student below him and the fate he left his class to. It hurt to see them in danger as they were, but he had a feeling Naruto would keep them safe. Now it was his turn to thin the crowd so when they survived their ordeal, they would not be bombarded from this group of students. Inasa tapped into the very air itself and let his quirk control all of the area around him in this zone. Through hand movements, he directed the flow, turning the place into a volatile wind storm that quickly took all the rubber balls out of their hands. From their view down below, it looked like a tornado was forming and students were beginning to panic. I believe it is very important for heroes to have passion, Inasa announced, the winds carrying his voice down to them. And all of you are fighting with it. Thank you. That's one of my favorite things on earth to see. Please let me join your fight and show my own passion. Passionate tempest. Once the winds died down, Inasa grinned even more that it nearly split his face, for all he saw below him was a sea of red blinking lights. He had won. Ah, what? There were 120 people taken out at once. A single person managed to do that in one attack. Mara announced from his booth, completely shocked to see that. That actually surprised me so much that I am completely awake now. I assume we will see many other people passing soon. Everyone, let's hurry up and get this out of the way so I can take a break. Good, good. XXX. Clap. 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 Naruto clapped slowly as he laughed. Behind him, the rest of the class were no worse for wear thanks to a barrier of gravity keeping their area secure. However, some did worry for Naruto's sanity, given he was finding utter destruction hilarious. Cannot say I ever experienced earthquake powers, that was something else. You have shown me one of your ultimate moves, allow me to show you a few of mine and thanks for making this one easy. What do you have planned, Naruto? Izuku asked, tried to determine if he too should have left by now as well. Just watch the show and do not leave the area just yet. Gravity is about to get weird. Naruto announced as glowing hands made of multicolored energy sprouted out of his inform hand sign. Beast pillars rise. The earth started to shake again and 9 large pillars of earth burst from the ground, all with depictions of the tailed beasts on them and that rose taller than the stadium itself. Then the hands that performed the jutsu clasped each other and a small black orb could be seen forming in between them. Planetary devastation. The earth shook differently this time and all took notice. Not just because of the giant earth pillars but because they split in half and floated in the sky, combining to create a ball of earth that sucked in all the loose earth along with some of the empty fake buildings and a bit of the mountain section as well. When done, people stared up at the giant boulder of chaos in the air. XXX. Just what does that idiot think he is doing? Aizawa roared in rage. He hoped to the gods above that Naruto was not planning on throwing that back into the ground. This was a test, not a massacre or some horrible simulation of war. Oh god, did Naruto have PTSD? One of your students has the power to do all this. Emi shouted in shock, hysterical laughs starting to come out of her. What in the shit is this now? Mara exclaimed from inside his booth. If he was not awake before, he sure was now. XXX. Okay, you all are good now. Naruto stated casually to his gobsmacked classmates. You can all go score your points now that they are distracted. I gotta ask, what do you plan on doing with that supreme example of bullshit powers? Hitoshi asked. Normally, you would be right to fear a technique as devastating as that. However, this is part of my performance. Think of it as this stadium's Jumbotron. Feel free to join or go get your points. Really? All this for a freaking Jumbotron? Himiko asked before laughing. I don't know, I am down for it. Kyoka stated with a smirk, she could not help but admire her boyfriend's showmanship on this. I am definitely joining in. Momo replied, admiring the craftsmanship. Please play Tom Hardy's Transcendental Cha-Cha-Cha. Welcome to the Interplanetary Ballroom. Naruto announced as he took over the intercoms with his hacking tool, causing Aizawa to sit back down and smack his forehead. Emi just looked confused at the reaction of a done-with-it-all parent. And as soon as Naruto started the song, Kyoka, Momo, and himself just disappeared. The rest of the class scattered in groups of their own to take the advantage. The only dance hall playing hits from the past, present and future temporal sector simultaneously. A little warning to all our dancers tonight who only perceive in 3 dimensions, this next one's a bit of a doozy. Music began to play as the giant rock sphere showed off an image of Naruto as if he and his girlfriends were dancing in an otherworldly disco room. Dance floor. Kurama screamed out as his face seemed to jump out of the small moon while Yuki, Chome, and Kokuo popped out of the sides with each cha. Cha-cha-cha. Salsa. Seiken sang as it formed out of the earth below and tried to pole dance on one of the pillars, but it was difficult due to it being a giant slug, rumba. Tango. Isobu sang as it burst out of the oasis zone, scaring the shit out of Suigetsu and other students. Mambo. Baller o muy picante. Shukaku happily sang from the ground with just his face, getting everyone to jump in shock. Space-time. Nana sang as her form appeared in the windows of the cityscape. Gravity. Champagne. En and Daigoro doing the same when their small parts came up. They disappeared for a moment before their heads bent the windows like rubber. Reality. Move to the beat of the transcendental cha-cha-cha. Naruto's face came back on the moon. Right foot forward, spin to the left. Look through time and witness your death. For those in the illusion, Shukaku's sand moved their bodies for them while Isobu's illusion mist decided to be helpful. For those that resisted the illusion, the sight was something to see despite seeing some of it on the mini-moon. Many questioned why kind of quirk or quirks even did all this. Grab your partner by the head and reveal to them the ultimate secret. Kurama jumped out of the moon and split into thousands of small foxes to whisper, the multiverse is getting colder, cooler, still every universe somehow got Zumba. Momo's smiling form appeared with a floating light up board as she sang within the mini-moon. The likelihood of that is 10 billion, 3 million, 8,528 to the power of 42. Jump back in line, transcendental cha-cha time. Forward, backward, take 3 steps. Shimmy to the right, witness the void. Naruto appeared to be having a dance-off with a humanoid person with an all-consuming void head and Mina felt jealous as she secured her spot by taking out 2 distracted people. She wanted to dance with the void. Void's got style, Void can dance. Void wears tearaway pants. The Void consumes all realities which includes up, till now 7 billion Bellinis. Back in the stands, Aizawa looked longingly at the disappearing drink the Void person consumed, wishing he was drunk, he was too sober for this. However, since he and Emi were watching this illusion and barely resisting, they became part of the simulation. Suddenly, they were on a dance floor with Naruto in between them. But if you're too scared to dance, don't worry, just relax. Close your eyes, open your mind. Brace yourself and clap 3 times. Naturally, being herself, Emi just shrugged and did as she was told, finding all this way too funny. Somewhere out there, there's a planet just like yours, a perfect carbon copy with a you that looks identical. That looks and lives and breathes exactly just like you. Except for one big difference, this you is not shit scared to hit the dance floor, cha-cha-cha. Ms. Joke broke down laughing on the floor when another Aizawa appeared and actually began to dance next to the original, much to his horror and consternation. It and other vestiges of One for All hit the dance floor. Salsa, rumba. Yoichi sang in a sombrero and trying not to laugh. Tango, mambo. Daigoro sang with a goofy attempt at the dances. Fandango caliente. Hikage sang with a complete bored and deadpan face despite being dressed in a sparkling suit and his chest exposed. Space-time. Momo sang as she popped out from behind the normal Aizawa. Gravity. Kyoka sang, doing the same and actually scaring the man. Champagne. Naruto sang with actually spraying Aizawa with a bottle of champagne. Reality. All 3 sang to a highly unamused teacher before grabbing his arm and spinning him over to Emi, whose fake Aizawa did the same to her, so they met in the middle. Emi was having a riot while Aizawa was mortified. Move to the beat of the transcendental cha-cha-cha. Slide to the left, witness perfection. Naruto sang as Mera appeared and witnessed his version of perfection, a full night's rest and a vacation, but that did not last like as he was slide in the opposite direction. Slide to the right, nothing means anything. Oh, so a typical day at the commission for him. Or anything means nothing, I get them mixed up, either way is a reason to shake your butt. Naruto smacked Mera on the ass and the man found himself back in his booth, questioning his reality. Naruto then stood between 2 unamused men that were having a hard time. This being Kudo and Bruce, who like Aizawa, hated this, but they tried their best. Second verse now, you're doing pretty well, following the beat can be hell. The bridge, outro, double chorus, every possibility. All playing simultaneously. Sometimes this song, it sounds like, Kurama overtook the moon again to roar that sounded like his roar mixed with loud guitars. Sometimes this song, it sound like, Matabi appeared and sang a pure, lala, before winking at Himiko directly and disappearing again. Naruto once again appeared between the dancing Shota and Emi and sang, lucky that today the you that's here perceives a song that sounds like cha-cha. Infinity is a long time, especially when you're waiting in the drinks line. Naturally, this was Aizawa and he looked done with everything. Existential thoughts assail ya, at least now you got a margarita. But now it's a dog, now it's a cat, it's everything and nothing, it's a baseball bat. Suddenly, you're standing on an alien planet where cocktails haven't been invented yet. God damn it. Aizawa groaned out as Emi hung on to him for dear life as she could not stop laughing at his misfortune. Blink. Now you're an old French dandy. The world seemed to blink and both teachers found themselves back in the stands, but everything in the stadium had turned into a French ballroom where all the students wore old-timey French suits and dresses. Blink. Now you are made of cotton candy. The world blinked a second time and people were screaming at the fact they were made of cotton candy in a circus and clowns were looking at them hungrily. Blink. Now you're back in the club, a little less scared to shake your rump. La 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 la. This time they were in Naruto's club in Moon and it was rumbling. Now you can see what we see. Now that you've been where we've been. The music's always playing, from the start, till end of time. It's always playing in your mind. Don't let it twist up your inside. As Naruto continued that last part epically, Class 1A were on the dance floor, getting people out and singing along. We can't stop the band from jamming in every reality. Setsuna and Itsuka sang with a shrug as the people that got out, woke up and disappeared. They're playing rock, they're playing trance. Ejiro and Denki sang, doing the same and having a blast. They're playing a string symphony, but this is the only time in existence that we ever know so far that the song has sounded anything like a cha-cha. The rest of the class sang as they secured their positions, all while Yoichi randomly played on an electronic keyboard for a moment. The Naruto and the vestiges continued. The dance floor, cha-cha-cha. Nana sang while both her and All Might danced and butt-tapped each other. Salsa, rumba, tango, mambo. En and Daigoro sang, doing a lot of the same. Ricardo Dobrando Mina Mente. Bruce shouted aloud while letting off sparks thanks to his quirk while Kudo stared at him in disbelief. Spacetime, gravity, champagne. Naruto sang as three of his limbo clones joined him, reality. Move to the beat of the transcendental cha-cha-cha. The universe is getting colder, cooler. Still every planet somehow got Zumba. Expand your music repertoire. Kyoko sang as she took Naruto's hand. And eat your caviar like a neutron star. Vocalized Momo as she took his other hand. The all three bowed as the world seemed to blink once more. Transcendental cha-cha-cha. When everyone regained their sight, they saw that the broken pillars and the mini-moon were gone, replaced by sand courtesy of Shukaku, and it mostly filled up the gaps from Shindo's earthquake, with a lot of rest just spilling over. As everyone questioned their sanity and their grasp on reality, there was one thing that was not in question. Class 1A of Ua High School had passed the first round.